The Starborn Empire spanned 12,000 star systems. Their vessels glided through the void like silver phantoms, beautiful, graceful, and lethal. For 12 millennia, their rule went unchallenged. None could defeat them. None dared to try. The Starborn were legends made flesh. They did not age. Disease could not touch them. Their bodies healed from almost any wound. With endless lifespans, they shaped an empire that seemed eternal. But eternity bred complacency. Their science had stagnated for ages. Why improve what already worked? Their fleets still fought with tactics written 10,000 years before. Every conflict unfolded the same way, two armadas meeting in open space, declaring intent, then clashing by ancient rules. The stronger prevailed. Predictable. Polite. Dull. Then they discovered humanity. The colony world of New Terra lay on the Empire's farthest border. Barely 50 years old, home to 10 million settlers, farmers, miners, builders. Its defenses were modest, a few orbital guns, a handful of fighters, nothing that could challenge the Starborn. Admiral Thraxus arrived with 50 warships, each a titan of destruction. He sent the usual ultimatum: submit, accept Starborn rule, pay tribute, become part of the Empire. The humans refused. Thraxus was intrigued. Most species bent the knee immediately. Those who didn't did so after seeing the fleet. But these humans sent only 3 words: we will not. He found it amusing. Humanity was new to the stars, having mastered faster-than-light travel only 50 years prior. Children playing with fire. He would crush their defiance, then welcome them as subjects. His fleet formed its traditional assault line, advancing slowly to give the enemy time to surrender, the honorable, civilized way. But no defenders appeared. The orbital platform stayed dark. The fighters never launched. Thraxus waited, expecting fear to break them. Then his sensors flickered. One contact, a single ship rising from behind the planet's moon. Smaller than his flagship, yet sleeker, sharper, built for war. The scanners named it TSV Indomitable. Thraxus almost laughed. 1 ship against 50? Absurd. He opened a channel to offer mercy. A woman's voice answered, cold and composed. I'm Captain Elena Korsoff of the Terran strike vessel Indomitable. We do not accept your terms. We do not recognize your authority. Leave now, or face the consequences. Thraxus did laugh then. Consequences? From 1 ship? He ordered his fleet forward. The Indomitable would be vaporized, and New Terra would follow. But the human vessel didn't charge. It turned and accelerated away, fleeing at impossible speed. Thraxus ordered pursuit. The formation broke as 50 warships chased their lone prey into the asteroid belt. The region was dense with rock and ice, unsuitable for proper battle. But Thraxus pressed on. That's when it all went wrong. Explosions ripped through his fleet, not from enemy fire, but from the asteroids themselves. Mines, hundreds of them, hidden, waiting. Ships that had survived 1,000 wars were torn apart in seconds. Shields collapsed. Armor split. Panic spread. Thraxus shouted for retreat, but his sensors filled with chaos. Phantom echoes, false contacts, ghost signals. Electronic, never seen warfare like this. His fleet fell into chaos. Ships fired wildly at ghosts, others slammed into unseen asteroids, blinded by interference. Amid the confusion, the Indomitable struck. It emerged from the dust like a phantom, unleashed pinpoint volleys, and vanished before return fire could lock on. It danced through the debris field, swift, cunning, merciless. When silence finally fell, 12 Starborn warships were gone. 12 out of 50, destroyed by 1 human ship. The Indomitable had not suffered a single critical hit. Thraxus stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Impossible. Battles did not unfold like this. There were rules, civilized, predictable rules. This was chaos. This was unfair. He ordered withdrawal. For the first time in 12,000 years, a Starborn admiral retreated. Humanity had done what no other race dared. They had won. Word of the defeat rippled through the stars. Some called it luck. Others called it deception. But all agreed. The galaxy was watching now. The Starborn High Council convened on their radiant capital. They were unshaken. Thraxis, they decided, had grown old, complacent. They would respond properly, with a grand armada, 500 warships commanded by their finest minds. The humans would be erased, and order restored. On board the Indomitable, Captain Elena Korsoff watched her displays with cold focus. She knew the first battle had only been a prelude. The Starborn would return, larger and angrier, but still trapped in their old ways. They would think like immortals who had forgotten fear. That, she thought, would be their undoing, because humanity remembered what they did not. War was not ritual. War was not polite. War was survival, and humans had been mastering survival since the dawn of fire. 3 weeks later, the Grand Armada arrived, 500 warships gleaming like a wall of stars. Admiral Thraxis commanded once more, pride wounded, reputation scarred. He would not fail again. They approached New Terra expecting ceremony, a proper, orderly battle. The fleets aligned in flawless symmetry, elegant and disciplined. It was magnificent. It was exactly what Captain Korsoff wanted. The Indomitable appeared alone once more. One ship facing 500. Thraxis smiled. He had learned from the last battle. This time his fleet would not chase shadows. They would stay in formation, advance with precision, cautious and deliberate. The human ship could not run forever, but Captain Korsoff had no intention of running, at least not yet. She opened a wide-band transmission. Every vessel in the Starborn Armada received it. Not just voice, video, data, history, humanity's history. The feed displayed images of endless wars, brutal, chaotic, relentless. Battles that spanned continents, cities reduced to ash, soldiers fighting in mud, in fire, in space, empires rising and falling, generations born and buried in conflict. The Starborn watched in disbelief. Humans fighting each other, civilizations annihilated, worlds burned. Yet through every horror, humanity endured. The message was unmistakable. Humans had not invented war. They had evolved with it. The Starborn had merely practiced war. Humanity had survived it. Then, without warning, the Indomitable vanished. Not destroyed, simply gone. Thraxis ordered a full system sweep. Nothing, no trace. Days passed. The Grand Armada held its orbit over New Terra, waiting, scanning. Thraxis remained vigilant. He would not be baited a second time. The human ship would reveal itself eventually. Then came the reports. A Starborn supply convoy ambushed in a neighboring system. 3 ships destroyed. The attacker escaped before reinforcements could respond. Hours later, a relay station crippled. Then a mining outpost raided. Each time, the same name appeared on sensor logs. Indomitable. Thraxis understood now. The humans were not avoiding battle, they were redefining it. Instead of challenging his armada head-on, they struck at its heart. Supply lines, communication hubs, logistics, everything the Starborn assumed untouchable. He divided his forces, dispatching escorts to protect convoys, patrols to guard the stations. The perfect symmetry of his Grand Armada fractured. It was still vast, still mighty, but no longer unified. And still the attacks continued. The Indomitable seemed omnipresent. It appeared where defenses were weakest, struck with precision, and vanished again into silence. Speed, deception, unpredictability, tactics the Starborn had no answer for, hit and run, guerrilla strikes. Psychological warfare. The Starborn crews began to change. They who had lived for centuries without fear now felt it creeping in. Every flicker on the sensors could be the human ship. Every moment of calm could explode into fire. They stopped sleeping well. They made mistakes. They began to doubt. Fear had taken root where confidence once ruled. Thraxis received more transmissions from the Indomitable, not threats but lessons. Fragments of human history, each one a study in warfare. Hannibal at Cannae, encircling and annihilating a larger Roman army. The guerrilla campaigns that toppled empires. The sieges that starved cities for years. The submarine tactics of Earth's world wars. The insurgencies that bled occupiers dry. Each transmission ended with the same chilling message. We have been doing this for 10,000 years. You are amateurs. 3 months into the campaign, Thraxis had lost 80 ships. Not in glorious combat, but in ambushes, traps, and raids. His once proud armada was scattered across 4 star systems, defending everything, protecting nothing. Supplies dwindled, crews grew restless. His name, once revered, became a whisper of failure. Enough. He would end this. No more hiding, no more defense. He ordered every surviving ship to regroup. They would find the Indomitable and destroy it. Every vessel, every weapon. Pure offense. 420 warships answered his call. The Grand Armada reformed, still mighty, still terrifying. Together they began a methodical sweep of every sector the human ship had touched. They would corner it. They would end it. Then the Indomitable appeared. It revealed itself within a nebula known as the Ghost Cloud, a vast expanse of ionized mist and electromagnetic storms. Scanners faltered. Navigation flickered. But Thraxis could see the faint silhouette of his enemy. Finally, he had it trapped. The Grand Armada entered the cloud. Immediately, chaos erupted. Radiation disrupted comms. Ship-to-ship coordination failed. Formations dissolved into confusion. The starborn attack pattern, perfected over millennia, shattered. The Indomitable moved like a specter. It belonged there. Captain Korsoff had studied the Ghost Cloud for weeks, mapping its currents, radiation pockets, and hiding zones. Her ship was built for this environment, shielded, agile, invisible. The Starborn stumbled through the storm. The Indomitable struck, appearing, firing, disappearing again. Precision volleys sliced through their hulls. Attempts at coordination collapsed. Starborn gunners fired at sensor ghosts. Ships collided in the fog. They died without ever seeing their killer. Korsoff targeted command ships first, the largest vessels, the ones coordinating fleet movements. One by one, they were erased. With their command structure gone, the Grand Armada became a mob, hundreds of powerful warships without leadership or purpose. Thraxis watched his fleet disintegrate. Ship after ship vanished from his displays. Explosions turned the nebula into a storm of light and debris. Through it all, that single human vessel moved untouched, silent, unstoppable, inevitable. He tried to order a retreat. Half his ships never received it. The rest fled blindly, colliding, lost in static and confusion. The Ghost Cloud had become their grave. Their pride had led them in. Their arrogance kept them there. By the time the survivors escaped the mist, the Grand Armada had lost 200 ships, half its strength. The greatest force the Starborn had built in 1,000 years had been shattered. By one human ship and the captain who understood what war truly was. News spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Starborn Empire, unchallenged for 12,000 years, was bleeding. Subjugated species whispered in the shadows. Rebel cells gathered in secret. Pirates grew bold. The empire that had once seemed eternal now looked breakable, and somewhere in the dark between stars, the Indomitable kept moving. Captain Elena Korsoff knew the war was far from over. But she also knew something the Starborn did not. Humanity's full fleet was coming. 50 warships, each built from the lessons of her campaign, each forged to show the galaxy what true war meant. On the capital world, the Starborn High Council met in emergency session. For the first time in their recorded history, they felt something new, fear. Their greatest admiral had failed. Their invincible armada was in ruins. And across the empire, the cracks began to widen. 12 worlds rose in rebellion. Species who had served for millennia now questioned their masters. If one human ship could defeat the Starborn, perhaps the Starborn were not gods. Perhaps freedom was possible. The Council ordered their fleets to crush the uprisings, but the Starborn were unprepared. Their doctrines were built for grand, ceremonial battles, fleets in perfect lines, wars fought by rules. They had no experience with insurgencies, no answer for chaos, for enemies that refused to surrender. Each rebellion they silenced sparked 2 more. Their forces stretched thin. The empire was fracturing. Admiral Thraxis saw one chance to save both his honor and his people. He gathered what remained of his might, 300 ships. He would end this war. He would destroy the Indomitable, erase the humiliation, and restore order through sheer force. His analysts studied every engagement, every ambush, every maneuver. They mapped the human vessel's behavior and predicted its next strike, a supply depot at the fringe of starborn space. There, Thraxus set his trap. 300 warships hid among the moons, silent and waiting. When the Indomitable arrived, the net would close, and it did. The human vessel dropped from warp, alone, scanning the depot. Thraxus's trap sprang to life. 300 ships surrounded the lone target. No escape, no cover. Total victory was inevitable. Then Captain Korsoff laughed. Her voice echoed across every starborn frequency. It wasn't mocking or desperate, it was triumphant. Thraxus felt cold dread creep into his gut. "Thank you, Admiral," she said evenly, "for gathering your entire fleet in one convenient place. I was hoping you'd do something predictable." She transmitted a single set of coordinates. For a moment, Thraxus didn't understand. Then his tactical officer went rigid. The coordinates pointed to the Hypergate network, the colossal web of jump gates that bound the Starborn Empire together, the arteries of their civilization, the backbone of their power. Across the void, 300 Starborn warships dimmed their weapons and fell silent. The war was over. The galaxy itself seemed to exhale. Humanity had done the impossible, not through sheer force, but through understanding the one truth the ancients had forgotten. Wars are not won by pride or power, but by those who refuse to die quietly. Within hours, news spread like wildfire. The Starborn Empire, eternal, invincible, divine, had surrendered to humanity. Worlds that had endured millennia of servitude erupted in revolution. Flags long banned were raised once more. Entire species sang songs that hadn't been heard in thousands of years. Captain Elena Korsoff stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the distant glow of collapsing gates and burning ships. Around her, her crew was silent, exhausted, but victorious. The stars ahead belonged to no empire now. They were open again, untamed, alive. That was the real test, not victory, but restraint. Captain Elena Korsoff stood at the viewport, watching the stars blur into light as the Indomitable slipped into faster-than-light transit. The galaxy ahead was broken, but alive again. Free, chaotic, uncertain, just as it should be. She thought of the millions who had died, the worlds that had burned, and the lessons bought with blood. Humanity had shattered an empire, yes, but destruction was easy. Creation was harder. Peace was harder. For the first time, humanity had the strength to shape the galaxy. "That we can guide, but not command," she answered calmly. "If we become what we destroyed, then everything we fought for was meaningless." The general hesitated, then sat down. The silence that followed was heavier than applause. Everyone in the hall understood what she was saying, and what it would cost. Power always demanded to be used, and restraint was the hardest victory of all. Korsoff continued. "The galaxy is watching us. Every decision we make from this moment on will define what humanity stands for. We can rebuild, we can protect, but we must never dominate. Freedom means risk. It means chaos, but it also means choice, something the galaxy has not had in 12,000 years. Her voice softened. "Let the Starborn Empire's fall be more than our triumph. Let it be a warning. Empires die. Ideals endure, if we have the courage to uphold them." When she finished, the hall remained silent for several seconds, then erupted in thunderous applause. Not for a conqueror, but for a reminder that humanity's greatest victory would never be written in battle, but in restraint. Outside, in orbit over Earth, the Indomitable awaited her return. Its hull still bore the scars of the war, symbols of what humanity had survived. As Korsoff looked out over the blue world she had fought for, she allowed herself a rare moment of peace. The war was over. The challenge of peace had just begun. Question was whether they had. That's an outstanding and powerful ending, a perfect culmination of the Indomitable's saga. It ties together every major theme you've been building. The contrast between mortality and stagnation, the moral burden of victory, and the transformation of humanity from conquerors to custodians. Here's a refined, polished version of your final section, tightened for pacing and rhythm while keeping every idea and tone intact. It reads like the last page of an epic HFY chronicle. There is a difference, Korsov said firmly. We can offer protection to those who ask. We can share technology with those who need it. We can mediate disputes between species. But we must never impose our will. We must never decide we know better than others how they should live. A delegate called out, "Then how do we prevent another empire from rising? How do we keep peace without power?" Korsov's reply was steady. By building something new, not an empire, not a federation. Something that has never existed before. A defense alliance. A mutual protection pact. Many species working together, each independent, each contributing what they can. No single race in control. No single leader deciding for all. She stepped away from the podium, standing beneath the banners of Earth and its colonies. Many fear us. They see what we did to an empire that ruled for 12,000 years. And that makes us terrifying. So we must prove we are different. We must share power instead of hoarding it. Ask consent instead of demanding obedience. Admit when we are wrong. Change when change is needed. We must be everything the Starborn were not. The Secretary-General rose. "Captain Korsov, what do you propose specifically?" Korsov smiled faintly. "A galactic summit. Invite everyone, every world, every government, every species. And we ask them what they want, not what we think they need. What they want. Then we build it together. It will be messy. It will be slow. It will be frustrating, but it will be free." The chamber erupted in debate, some inspired, some outraged. Voices clashed, arguments rose and fell, but Korsov only listened. This, she thought, was the sound of liberty. The chaos of freedom was still better than the silence of tyranny. When the vote was called, the motion passed. The summit would happen. Humanity would send the invitations, but not lead the outcome. That would belong to everyone. Afterward, Korsov returned to the Indomitable, now orbiting Earth for repairs. Walking its corridors, she remembered the fear, the exhaustion, the impossible victories. Her crew greeted her with quiet pride. They had survived. They had won. On the bridge, she gazed at Earth, blue, fragile, alive. They had fought for this, for home, for freedom. Years later, a Starborn historian would write the definitive account of the war. His conclusions spread across the galaxy, studied in academies and memorial halls alike. The humans did not defeat the Starborn Empire with one ship. They defeated it with 10,000 years of never-knowing peace. 10,000 years of struggle taught them everything about survival, about adaptation, about winning when victory seemed impossible. The Starborn spent 12,000 years in peace and forgot how to fight. They became immortal and stopped evolving. Humanity remained mortal and never stopped changing. When these two met in battle, the outcome was inevitable. The wisdom not to